Podcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Simon Games information session. Hopefully, you all are inside and staying warm this evening, or will soon be heading home and staying warm. So please. What about now? It appears we may be having a little bit of sound problems. Give us just a minute. Okay, I actually just got word from somebody that you guys can hear me. So we are going to keep going. So hopefully you are excited about learning more about the Simon Games this evening. And we are going to go through a series of slides talking about the games themselves, talking about Simon Business School, and then opening it up for questions. So I am Molly Mesko. Some of you I have met before, but for those who I have not had the chance to meet before, tonight I oversee our executive and part-time programs here at Simon Business School, and we are looking forward to meeting you along this journey. So as I mentioned tonight, we are going to go through a quick overview of Simon. Some of you, again, have either visited or you've been in touch with Joe Sayer or some of my other colleagues to talk about the programs. Some of you are early on in that process. So we'll do a high-level overview, and then we can answer questions, or I will leave you with the contact information to be in touch with Joe to learn more about your program of interest. The biggest topic of the night, of course, is Simon Games. So we'll spend the most amount of time talking about Simon Games and next steps and how it all works. Some of you have submitted questions already, and so we will certainly answer most of those during the slide deck, but then I'll come back to any that we haven't addressed at the end. And like I said, feel free via the chat or the questions section within the webinar to send any questions my way. I'm happy to answer them. So first, Simon Business School. So Simon is known fairly well as part of University of Rochester here in the Rochester region, but there's some things that people may not realize about Simon. First and foremost, we have faculty that are known around the world for their research and their teaching in programs internationally, and actually founding and editing many of the major journals of business. And so the exciting part is that they are actually consistently ranked, they get an A for their ability to teach. And so that may seem obvious to some of you, but oftentimes at graduate level programs, you can have brilliant faculty and students will say, but I don't learn anything from them. And so our faculty are consistently ranked for their research and their applications and how they are able to convey that knowledge to our students. We are very excited this year to be ranked number 13 in the US and number 21 in the world by Financial Times for women. And that is based on pay parity, and that our students, our women graduates, have actually achieved pay parity with our MBA male graduates. And so that's very exciting this year. We've had rankings from Financial Times as well as Business Week for being a top MBA program for entrepreneurship. And we recently received the exciting designation as 2018 Program of the Year for our innovative curriculum and offerings for our students. So we are very excited to have or to be here in the Rochester region and be a resource for our students and the community, and certainly hopefully welcoming you all into the programs in the future. Other things that are very important for Simon is, we don't teach fads or just common interest things. We really get to the heart of business, and a lot of it is based in theory, and then you go into your courses that allow you to apply that, and that's so that it is truly lifetime preparation. We have alumni who come back that graduated 2030. We actually just celebrated our 50th year of the Executive MBA program and had an event. They came back and they said, there are still things that I learned in my executive program 50 years ago that I use to this day, whether they retired and they're on boards or they're starting up companies or they're still running their organizations. So, and of course, not only do we have the strong Simon community here in the Rochester region, but globally, we have alumni from over 80 countries represented. So the two programs that we're going to talk about tonight that are offered as part of the Simon Games Scholarship Competition are our Executive MBA program and our Professional MBA program. And both of these programs are designed for those of you who are working full-time jobs. Oftentimes our jobs are more than, the typical 8 to 5. I know many of our students travel, they have family obligations, they have community obligations. And so both of these programs have really been designed for those of you who are balancing an intense career and wanting to come back and accelerate your career through an MBA program. The executive program is designed for professionals who have been in the workforce on an average, say 15 years. Of course, there's a little variation there, but our average is about 15 years, and oftentimes they have 5 or more years of leadership experience in their organizations, or they've been selected by management as being selected for a management track within their organization. The program is designed, we refer to it as an accelerated lockstep cohort, and all that means is that you will start in the fall with a group of students, usually the class size is about 35 to 40 students, and you will continue with that same group from the beginning to the end of your program. So you will take all of the same classes together. We prescribe the curriculum with the exception of the few electives that you take, and you will continue along that path together in a lockstep format until you finish the program 22 months later. Classes are offered 1 Friday and 2 Saturdays per month, and the curriculum is really designed to give people who have experience within their field or their capacity or in their management area, to give them a broad understanding of business and leadership. So oftentimes we'll have a CFO or a director of marketing or somebody who is already in a leadership role within kind of a specific area, and they're trying to round out the edges and truly understand how their area fits within the broader business. Then we have our Professional MBA program, which is also sometimes referred to as the part-time MBA program. You'll hear us refer to that synonymously. And the Professional MBA program is for those who are usually earlier on in their career. Now, we do still have some people who are further in their career with 10 or 15 years of experience that come back through this program, but overall our average experience in the Professional MBA program is about 3 to 5 years of experience, and some may or may not have leadership experience. Oftentimes students will have at least community involvement or things like that, but they may or may not have experience managing people. As you go through this program, you will take your courses in the evening, and there's a lot of flexibility in your ability to pace out things. So for example, if you have a really busy period at work, perhaps you only take 1 class during that time period, or when you know that things are a little bit freer, you take 2 classes at that point, or maybe you need to completely take a 7-week period off, and so you can do that. Most of our students, try to go through at a pace of about 2 classes per term. But again, you've got the flexibility to adjust based on your schedule. You also have the ability to take more electives in the Professional MBA program than you do in the executive program. You'll have 9 core classes, and then you will you can have the option in the electives that you take in order to specialize or get a minor. So I have some slides coming up that will talk about that in a little bit more detail. So this is just a quick overview of what the Executive MBA curriculum is that I talked about, that you would proceed as a lockstep with your cohort. It is 15 core courses, 3 elective options. And then throughout your first year, you'll really focus on leadership development. And in your second year, your new venture development practicum. That's your capstone course. There's opportunities in both programs for global electives, global immersions. We have Switzerland, Israel, China, South Africa, great options for anyone who's interested in taking an international course as one of their electives. Again, as I mentioned, for the professional MBA, you'll have 9 core, 11 electives. Most students complete the degree in about 3 years. Students going at the fastest pace can complete it in 2 years. And these are just the specializations and the minors that I was referring to. So if you wanted to take 6 or 7 courses and have a concentration or a specialization as part of your MBA, you could have those options in banking, asset management, other areas of finance. You've got the marketing options and obviously consulting options. Then on the right-hand side of the screen, you will see what are referred to as cross-functional or functional minors. And you can complete those with about 4 elective courses to have a minor as part of your MBA. None of these are required for PMBA, so I always like to point that out. About 50% of my my students in the professional MBA program will choose a minor or a specialization, and the others really design their curriculum to be similar to EMBA, where they take a little bit of a sampling of all of the business courses in order to have a really well-rounded, broad-based business management degree. And if you'd like to compare the programs, here is a link. We will be sending this webinar out, so any links or anything that you see throughout the slides tonight, don't worry, you'll be getting those. So don't feel like you have to try to write them down or get to them quickly. We will send this out to you. All right, so this is why everyone is here tonight, and this is the good information, the Simon Games. The one thing that I love about this time of year in Rochester is that as you're driving down 390 or you're driving down 490 on your way into work or your way home from work, there's this bright thing at the skyline, and it's certainly not the sun this time of year, but it's the big billboards, the big bright yellow billboards that everyone sees, and certainly is the sign that the Simon Games are coming. So here we will jump in. So some of you may know this already, but what is the Simon Games actually all about? So it is an online game that you will play. It's a business simulation, and you will essentially start with a simple business model that the computer gives you. The scenario will be laid out, and we'll review that in just a moment. And then as you progress through the game, it's going to build in complexity, and you're going to be making more and more complicated decisions that build on one another in order to run your business to the best of your ability. And you will be able to see how you and your business performs against others who are in the same global marketplace. And again, this is what is simulated within the online platform. Once you get through the first couple of rounds of play, which we'll go over in just a minute, if you are in the top 10, then you will be invited to present in the final round, which is called the report to the board. So we're going to go through each of these things in more detail. So some people ask, why play? I think the most reasonable answer is probably most people are looking for the full tuition scholarship or the opportunity for a full tuition scholarship. But there's really a lot of ancillary benefits that come by playing the Simon Games as well. And I think it's sometimes surprising to competitors just how important these end up becoming, even if they don't win the Simon Games. When we talk to our competitors afterwards and our students who played and our alumni, they oftentimes will say, it really was a way for me to test what knowledge I had in business. And whether it's marketing or sales or whether it's operations and, my effectiveness there or managing the finances, I didn't know what I didn't know until I played Simon Games. And so this was a great way to test that. Something that also surprises a lot of our competitors is that about 65% of our competitors, of our top finalists last year who played, did not have a business background. So they came from all other areas. They came from engineering and the sciences. They came from liberal arts and journalism and, other areas of industry, healthcare, for example, or nonprofit, but not the business function. And so this was a great way to kind of get a taste of that while they were competing for their full tuition. You also, by playing the game, start to understand the dynamics between competitors and how your decision impacts the competitors, or how the competitors' decisions in the market impact you, and what happens to your business. And then our competitors always say they learned the time management skills that they're going to need in order to get their MBA. So again, it's kind of a great trial run for what it'll be like when you start your MBA program. And again, many of our competitors, even if they don't win the full tuition, end up coming on for their MBA. And this was kind of a good warm up so that they figured out where they were going to carve out some time in their evenings, how they were going to be able to learn the material if they liked the business type curriculum, in order to be prepared for when they start their MBA program the following fall. So again, just summing it all up, you're going to be running a virtual business, but there are very, very real rewards aside from just the tuition. So here's what to expect. So the games are broken down into 2 rounds. And so round 1, that's going to be the round that starts on Monday, February 11th. So mark that date down. And it is a 2-week period that you're going to be playing, and it's really kind of a practice round. So regardless of how you do in this round, you will make it to the second round. And this is a great way for you to really practice in the interface and see what it's like to utilize the help file, to start making some basic market opportunity type decisions, to understand how to submit decisions, where certain help files are. And so we will essentially call this a practice round. You'll be competing against the computer, so you won't necessarily know who the other competitors are yet. And again, the decisions aren't quite as complex as what they will be as you progress to the game later. You will be submitting 3 decisions a week. Now, in this round, you can technically play at your own pace. So I've had competitors who have logged in on, the first Monday, say February 11th, they log in and they play through the entire round in the first couple of days. And they always say that they regretted that, though, because they felt like they wanted to have taken more time in hindsight to really get to understand the interface, to test out, how the market would respond to certain decisions. So we do recommend spacing the decisions out. We recommend spacing out so that you're making approximately 3 decisions a week. So that's submitting 1 decision every other day. And it'll prompt you on what decisions you're working on in the game. The scenario will tell you this is the decision you need to make. But you're going to use the data that you have and your information in the file in order to make those. And we recommend that each decision take about 30 minutes to an hour during this first round. So you're going to be looking at maybe 2 to 3 hours a week during this first round. Then you're going to have a week off. And during that week off, we are going to have another webinar, which is going to have a lot more detail about round 2 and about the report to the board round. We have a great networking event, which I will talk about towards the end of this evening. And then you start round 2. And so the second round will begin on March 4th. And this time, you will actually be playing against a group of competitors that are within your program. So there are some of you on here that are going to be interested in the professional MBA program. There are some that are interested in the executive MBA program. You will only be playing with players that are in that pool. So if you're interested in PMBA, you'll only be playing with PMBA. If you're interested in EMBA, you'll only be playing with EMBA. And these are going to be more complex decisions. And so you're really going to be analyzing research, determining what your primary target market is going to be. Later, you'll choose a secondary target market. You're going to be designing the product, designing the ads, investing in research and development. You're going to be pricing your products, running the sales. So there's a lot of business decisions that you're going to be making as you progress through this game. And every decision is going to simulate 1 quarter of the calendar. So we are looking at 8 decisions, which means 8 quarters. So this is going to be simulating that you are running your business over a 2-year period. We do break up the decisions to 2 decisions each week, and you have to play at that pace, okay? So because you're playing against other competitors in this round, every decision will be due on a Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. and on a Friday morning at 10 a.m. And if you don't submit, which we'll talk about as you get further into the game during the second webinar, if you don't submit, that could create a fatal error and be very hard to recover from. So it's very important that you follow the pace of the game in round 2. And again, each of the decisions are going to be adding complexity. So early on, the decisions may only be 30 minutes to an hour each, but as you progress, they may take longer, that each decision might take closer to 3 hours or 4 hours. So just know that when we send out the decision deadlines, that you are scheduling some of the time in there, and you'll always have several days to be able to work on the decision. So people will sometimes take, their lunch hour, or they'll take an hour or 2 in the evenings before the decision deadlines. And this is, again, where you start carving out the time in order to be able to play the games, but this is the same type of time that you would be carving out to go through to your MBA program. And we're not going to spend a lot of time on this tonight, but we will talk about it more during webinar 2 for those of you who continue on and join that webinar. Once you get to the very end of round 2, the top 10 competitors in each program will be invited to report to the board. And I know somebody had already asked that question in the earlier, in the pre-submitted questions, what date is that? So save the date. It is Saturday, April 6th. It starts in the morning, usually at 8 or 8:30 in the morning, and runs until early afternoon, where you will present to the board. And it is based on your strategy, your outcomes, what you learned, what you might have done differently, and how your decisions impacted your competitors and vice versa. And you are judged by a panel consisting of faculty members teaching in our programs, staff who work with both programs, alumni and current students who were past competitors of Simon Games. And so they will review the presentations, and at the end of that day is when we award the full scholarship. So again, of course, everybody's playing for the grand prize, but I always like to point out, and you'll hear me say this throughout the entire games and at every event, that I never want people to feel discouraged if they don't win the grand prize, because this is a great opportunity for us to get to know you and to become familiar with your admissions, your application criteria and who you are and your skills and your background. And so it allows us to have a great insight when we are evaluating applicants for additional scholarship opportunities. And so it's really important that you not feel discouraged if you don't win the grand prize. So I've talked about the simulation a little bit. I know this is a lot of words on the screen, and so like I said, you'll be able to read this in more detail when we send the slides out. But essentially, the scenario is going to be that you are starting a 3D bike manufacturing business. And so you are going to receive seed capital, and you will use that money in order to open your sales outlets, do the R&D necessary, advertise, create brand awareness, price your product, all of these initial business decisions to get started. And the ultimate goal is to be self-sufficient, pay back the investors, and be earning substantial profits, more so than your other competitors, at the end of the competition. And so there will be a balanced scorecard that will measure your overall results. And it is a complicated algorithm that takes into account your financial results, how effective your marketing was against your competitors based on sales results afterwards, those kinds of things, your decisions on investments, do you take chances and does it pay off, and how successful you are overall. So between now and when the games start, there is a great little demo on the Marketplace website. So Marketplace is the vendor, the platform that runs this simulation. And so I encourage you, feel free to go and view this demo, and it'll give you a little idea of what it's going to look like when you log in and the types of decisions that you're going to be making. So a few guidelines that we'll go through. Many of these are on the website, but sometimes people have questions over qualifications and whatnot. So you must be at least 22 years to compete. Most of the time, we've actually never had anybody that did not qualify based on age. Most of the time, students who are graduated from the undergraduate and working meet that qualification. We do require an undergraduate degree before you're able to start studying at Simon. U.S. or Canadian citizen or a permanent resident. There is a $75 registration fee, and that is actually a pass-through cost. We do not make any money on Simon Games. That is the licensing fee for us to be able to purchase the license for the simulation. And when you go to our registration page to register, you will be asked to submit a resume. And that allows us to review your experience and your background and be able to assess and make sure before you invest in the game and before you invest both your time and your money that you are a candidate for the school and that you are qualified to play the games. And so a lot of times this is what will also lead to the conversation about what program is best suited for you. So, we will review it. If you've picked a program based on kind of what you know so far, and we think that maybe we want to have a conversation and better understand why you chose that program, we'll reach out to you. Or perhaps you just don't know and you want to talk to one of us before you actually register, and I will give you that contact information tonight. We can help you make that decision before you register for the games. This is limited, excuse me, I'm a little tongue-tied. This is limited to students who are not, limited to individuals who are not students at Simon. Of course, we would not want to give an unfair advantage. And they are to be used for the 2019 enrollment. So that would be for the upcoming fall. We do technically have a spring start for our professional MBA program. So somebody who competes in Simon Games, the competition will be over by the time the classes would be starting for the spring. And so if you are interested in the spring start, we would talk to you about that in order to let you enroll. It is technically considered 2019 enrollment, even though it's spring. And just because you win, you still have to apply to the program itself. So even if you played the Simon Games successfully, we do still need a completed application, meeting all of the admissions requirements, and you must be accepted into the program. So a few tips. These are things that are very frequently asked questions throughout the year, especially for this round one. So the first thing is use the help file. You will find that when you get into the simulation that there will be something called a help file. Has lots of great information. It's not kind of the traditional help file that we're accustomed to. It's really much more like a textbook about business. And so there's lots of great information in there that will help explain certain concepts or why you're making certain decisions at certain times or how to analyze the various scenarios that you're looking at. And so this is what is oftentimes very helpful for people who do not have a business background while they're playing the game. So use the help file. Most of the questions that we get during the game, if they are not technical in nature, the answer ends up being check the help files, so the information is in there. So that would be my biggest word to the wise for this first round. I would also encourage you that as soon as you register for Simon Games, go ahead and register for the second webinar. For the second webinar, we go into a lot more detail about the individual decision dates in round 2. We talk about more decisions. I bring in an alumnus of the program to talk about their experience and give advice and allow you to ask questions of them. And so they will give some hints. And then mark your calendars for the networking event. It is a great opportunity to really start your Simon network. Oftentimes, the people that meet one another at this event end up being in class with you, or you end up becoming friends or coworkers or colleagues or acquaintances within the Rochester community. And so that is a great opportunity to make some more friends and acquaintances. So I would certainly encourage you to mark your calendar for that. You will hear or be able to see these when we send out the slide deck or the webinar, but this is just some of the words of wisdom from some of our past winners from each of our programs. Girish tells everyone to go for it, regardless of what your background is or what your goals are, definitely go for it. Chris Anger said that this was a great way to test it out, like I mentioned earlier, and see if an MBA program would be a good fit. And this was actually where he met a lot of his cohort members, and they are still friends and stay in touch to this date. Kelly's one of the ones that will tell you to use this first round to really test things out. She doesn't talk about it quite so much in this quote, but she always will say, she wishes she had been a little bit more, maybe less risk averse or a little bit more determined during round 1 to test things out. So next steps, if you visit our website, it's you can either Google Simon Games or it's simon.rochester.edu/Simon Games. This is the page that you'll see, and register to play. Once you register, you will receive a confirmation email from the shopping cart, and then you'll also receive an email from us before the game starts confirming that you're playing. And the day of, so on February 11th, is when you will receive your next communication from us telling you how to play. So don't panic if you haven't received login information or anything like that. We send it out the day of so that everybody has the same opportunity to log in. I'd also encourage you, if you haven't visited us before, to go ahead and visit Simon. There's oftentimes many opportunities that we're out in the community at happy hours or that we're at other local networking events. But if you haven't made your way to campus, it's a great way to get a sense of what the classes are like and what the students, and see your way around and help visualize yourself here. It's really a great opportunity. We can also set up individual meetings if any of our event dates don't work for you. Few reminders. Already mentioned the games begin February 11th, but the deadline is 1 week from tomorrow. So again, if you haven't registered yet, please do so, or ask us any questions you have in order so we can get you registered. And then on the morning of February 11th, you'll get an email from Simon Business School from us, and it will have instructions for how to log in. It will have a game ID number, license number, and that usually comes out around noon. So if on Monday, the 11th at noon, you haven't received that, give us a call or email the Simon Games email address. That'll be at the end of the slide deck, and let us know. But that way everybody has the same opportunity to log in that evening and start their first round. And here is the email that you would reach out to us if you haven't received it. Throughout the games, as you're going through, if you have questions related to the games or anything in general, you're welcome to call our main number that you see here or the Simon Games email address. I will share with you that the Simon Games email address goes to about 4 or 5 of us within the department. And so usually it allows us to respond to you very quickly, usually within a couple of hours. Now, I will say if you email at 2 or 3 in the morning, we may not respond, but even in the evenings at 6 or 7 o'clock at night, usually we will still be able to, because we know that's when most of you are playing. If you don't hear from us or there's something that we're not able to answer, we will oftentimes put you in touch with marketplace support. And that information is at the bottom of the screen, especially if it's a technical issue. They can help you with that. And then if it has to do with the content of the game, again, you can reach out to them. Most frequently, the answer is to check the help file. And then, of course, Joe Sayer, for those of you who haven't met him, he works with all of our candidates throughout the admissions process and is available to meet with any of you at any point in time. So at this point, covered most of the information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start going through the questions that were submitted beforehand and any questions that you all have submitted so far tonight. I know I've seen several coming in, and so we'll see what we haven't covered yet. So let's see. We've had some people ask about the timeline, so hopefully that is clear. Again, you will start on February 11th, and the whole thing will take about 6 to 7 weeks of play. You've got that week off in the middle, and then if you're invited to the final round, that will be April 6th. So start to finish, you're looking at about 8 weeks, but that's not the whole time that you're playing. Somebody did ask if there was an age restriction, and there is not. The only restrictions are the candidacy questions on, are you qualified for a program? And so certainly as working professionals, you graduated from your undergraduate and you're looking to advance or pivot your career, this is the game for you and the MBA program for you. So no age restrictions there. And actually last year we had a candidate who he was starting a second career as an entrepreneur after he had retired and came back and started playing the games. And so he was a great competitor. We did have somebody ask what expectations are for the winner. And, honestly, we don't have a lot of expectations other than you be a great, representative of the school and the brand. And we've never had a candidate who wasn't or a winner who wasn't. Oftentimes, our past competitors, regardless of whether they won, are very involved in the school. They generally attend a number of events by their choosing. And so that is really the expectation. I will also share, just to set a little bit of history for you, that we've actually found that our Simon Games competitors oftentimes are some of our top students in our program. And we have several years where they were actually the #1 in the class. So, so you all are a great bunch of people out there playing the games. Let's see. We did also have somebody ask if it was a group or an individual effort. Hopefully, as you've seen throughout the evening, it is really individual. It's based on your individual scores. You are playing against competitors, but the scoring is purely individual. All right, so I think those questions are answered. Let's see what we've got that have come in recently. So give me a second as I scroll up. Good, lots of good questions coming in. So one of the questions from very early on in the presentation, how do professors have time to spend with you all over other programs? And, I will share that our professional MBA students and our executive MBA students, they actually, I think they find that they get a lot of one-on-one time with the professors because you're here either in the evenings or you're here on the weekends. And, during the breaks that you'll have, during, dinner time or evening breaks, a lot of times students will just sit and chat with the professors. We also schedule social events and happy hours throughout the year that our professors come to. And so it's really a great opportunity for you to get to know them outside of the classroom as well. Somebody asked, when we decide the program selection for executive versus the professional program, and that will happen when you register for the game. So if you're unsure, feel free to reach out to us and we can help you make that decision. We have on occasion had somebody where they registered for one program and then while they were playing the game or after realized that that program wasn't going to work, whether because family or employer support. But frequently we want to make sure that you're in the right program when you register for the Simon game. So we will help you with that. Feel free to reach out to Joe. Feel free to reach out to me afterwards, or give us a call, but we will help you with that. Somebody asked if you have to be registered for the games in order to view the demo that I discussed. You do not have to be registered. So anybody can go to that website at any point in time and view the demo. And I would encourage you to do so before you register to see if it is something that interests you. Let's see. Lots of great questions. Somebody else asked about the resume and how much emphasis we place on that, if it has to be the latest or the greatest. Some of you have resumes from several years ago that maybe haven't been updated. We don't want you to have to spend a significant amount of time updating your resume just to be able to register, but we do want it to be a reflection of where you are in your career now. So I would encourage you to at least make sure that it's got, your current position and kind of a quick description of your roles. And, I would encourage you to that it reflect your experience, but it certainly doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to stand out or anything. It's not being used to have you stand out in a talent pool. It's just used for us to be able to assess where you are in your career, your background, what your undergraduate record looked like, and help figure out what program is best suited for you. We had a question about the networking reception. So it is at Good Luck, which is down near Village Gate for those of you familiar with the area, in the Goodman area. And it is a very casual place. So most of the time, our candidates or our participants will come in business attire. They're coming from work. We have some that come, in casual attire, having been able to go home after work before coming to the event. And so it is a very comfortable place. We don't want it to be any fancy frills. We want you to come and just feel comfortable to get to know one another. Let's see. So another question, it says, you mentioned having to create marketing materials, and if real people are responding, and no, it is computer simulation responses, and so they will recommend ways in order to create marketing materials that would have an impact, and then they would measure versus your competitors. So it is a simulated response. It's not going to be real people judging the materials. So I have some people that say, I have no marketing background, I have no creative ability or design experience. That is okay. You don't have to in order to be successful in your advertising. Somebody asked about if they would not be able to participate based on a prior degree that they hold, if they already have a master's degree, for example. And no, absolutely not. Now, if you already have an MBA, I don't know that you would want to compete again or compete for this, because I don't know that you would want to come back for another MBA. But no, we have people with master's degrees in various areas, both from a liberal arts side to very technical masters. We also have physicians, doctors who will play, nurses, and other clinical providers. We have had attorneys play in the past, again, nonprofit employees and leaders. So really, this is a wide breadth of backgrounds, experiences, degrees. We had somebody with a PhD in statistics, a biostatistician play previously. So certainly no, the prior degree will not prevent you from participating. All right, this is a great question. Somebody asked about if they've either played before or if they decide to play this year, would they be able to play again in the future? So if you have played before, we can't allow you to play again because you would have kind of insider knowledge on the games. So every few years we change the scenario, and when we change the scenario, then we're able to allow repeat competitors. But again, that only happens once every 4 or 5 years, and we've only been using this simulation now for, this is, I believe, our 2nd year. So so if you've played in the past, we wouldn't allow you to be able to play again this year. If you play this year, you would not be able to play next year. Somebody asked if your performance in the games is held against you in the application process. It is not. I will put one caveat on that. So I've had a competitor in the past who didn't follow directions, showed up late and unprofessionally to the report to the board, and that did impact the admissions decision, but not based on how they've done. So I actually have a handful of students in my current programs who didn't even place in the top 10, who are still students in our program that chose to come through regardless of how they did, because they realized once they got into the game what business knowledge they needed to gain. And so that was actually a really important part of the admissions conversation, was now they knew what they didn't know before, and how important it was to gain that knowledge for their careers. And so no, we don't use that against you, again, unless you out. And that was a once in my 5 years where we've had that happen, so that somebody just was not professional. Let's see. Still going through some questions. You guys have submitted lots of great questions, so bear with me as I sort through them. So somebody asked about, as somebody without a business background, any recommended resources prior to the competition. And, I really don't. I encourage people in general, if you don't have a business background, spend time reviewing Wall Street Journal or Economist, just to become kind of familiar with the lingo of business. You're certainly welcome to, there's lots and lots of websites out there, such as Khan Academy. There's lots of business websites out there that can do some business primer, but it's really, I wouldn't recommend it. I don't know that it will give you any added benefit necessarily, unless it's just purely for your interest or, entertainment. Like I said, lots of people who have competed, and most of the ones who did not have a business background just emphasized how much they used the help file in order to gain the information they needed. And then, if once they read the help file, they needed a little more supplement, they'd Google it or look for a YouTube video or something. But for the most part, the help file was the biggest piece that people referenced. Somebody asked about how many participants we expect to compete. Each year, we have on average between 35 and 40 competitors per program. That's varied from year to year. There was one year that we had up to 50 competitors in each program. But in recent years, we've been about 35 to 40. And so again, of those 35 to 40, the top 10 of that group is invited to report to board. And then there's one person from that. So if you're looking at your odds, I find those is pretty decent odds to be able to win. Let's see. We've got, somebody had mentioned that they were under the impression that EMBA was a 15-month program. No, it's, I'm sorry if that was conveyed somewhere along the way. There are programs in the area that are shorter, but our executive program is not. It is 22 months from the time you start to the time you finish. You get 2 months, 2.5 months off during the summer. And so, it's 19 months of coursework that you're actually in class. But from start to finish, when you start in August and finish in May, it's 22 months of completion. So somebody was asking about the scoring and if it is only looking at that quarter's decision or if it looks at projected decisions. Now, it does not look at projected decisions, but it does have a cumulative score. So you'll actually receive 2 scores after each quarter. And this is in round 2 where you'll receive the scorecards that we send out. But you'll receive a score for that quarter. And then you'll receive a cumulative score where your prior decisions, you know, obviously impact your current performance. And so it is the cumulative score that we use for determining the top 10. And we will talk more about that in the round 2 webinar. We go into a lot more detail about the scorecard and how all of that is done for the round 2. Somebody asked if spouses or significant others can attend the networking event, and yes, they are welcome to attend with you. We know that they're supporting you while you're playing the games and would be supporting you while you are going through the program, so we certainly would welcome them to attend. Somebody asked about the amount of time that is allotted to the games, including the final presentation. So, you know, I mentioned in the round 1, you might spend 2 to 3 hours per week. And in round 2, you might be spending, you know, anywhere from, we'll say 4 hours to 8, 9, 10 hours, depending on how much time you want to spend on the decision. You know, it can be done in reading the help file and making a decision, sticking it in. Can be done in an hour, but a lot of people really want to strategize and evaluate the data, and so that would take longer, and it's really up to you how much time you spend on that. In preparing presentations, most of our competitors will tell us that they spend several hours compiling the information and putting it into their PowerPoints to prepare for the report to the board, and so one of the tips that our alums has always shared is to keep kind of a diary or a journal along the way as you play the game to help you remember why you made the decisions you made or how you responded to something, because it makes putting your presentation together much easier at the end instead of trying to remember all the way back to the first couple of decisions and, you know, where things may have gone well or gone wrong. So just a little bit of advice there. Give me just a minute. Again, lots of great questions coming in. Oh, somebody asked if it would count against you if you can't make it to the social event. Absolutely not. That is purely optional. It is really just, if you can make it, it's a great event. But no, we would never hold that against you. Truly, you know, we put this in place a couple years ago because competitors said, who are these people that are behind the screen that are in this with me? And so we started doing it, and it's just a great opportunity. But everyone as business professionals certainly knows that that, you know, we have obligations with family and with work and with travel, and so no worries there. And then, yes, somebody asked if we would record this. It is being recorded, and we will be sending out a recording of it tomorrow. So you will have access to this. We'll also, I think we posted on the website, but you'll definitely receive an email of it for sure. Any other questions? I think those are all of them that I've had come in that I can see at least right now. If you submitted a question and I didn't answer it, feel free to maybe shoot it over again. Oh, somebody asked about getting in touch with past players. We do have past players that would attend some of our events and that are panelists and judges that we're happy to introduce you to. If you reach out to Joe Sayer, usually he'll try to connect you to somebody that is, you know, either in a similar field or a similar goals. I will tell you that they will not share, you know, anything that that is kind of a secret sauce. There really is no secret sauce, I think, that they can share other than, you know, spending the time and working hard on this. but we're happy to introduce you to some of our past competitors. Somebody asked if there's a ranking and if you can use it on your resume. You know, other than being first place, we don't really rank the remaining players. Certainly, if you're top 10, you could share that on your, on your LinkedIn or resume if it fit with something that you were doing. That would be completely up to you. Oh, another good question about if you need the GMAT before you play. You do not need the GMAT before you play. And that's something that we'll talk about as you get more into our program. So for the professional MBA program, when you apply, there's obviously the GMAT or GRE requirement. There are options for waiving that either through non-matriculated classes or certain certifications. So we can talk with you, but you don't have to worry about any of that before you play the games. Oh my goodness, you guys are one of the most active groups that I think we've had on webinars. This is great to see all of these wonderful questions. So somebody asked how quickly you'll see the results from the decisions you make in the game. So when you play round 1, you'll see the results of your decisions immediately. In round 2, we will send you the results from your decision at noon the day that you submit. So for example, if you submit on Tuesday at 10 a.m., that's when one of your decisions is due, we will then send the results out by noon on Tuesday. And then when the next decision is due on Friday at 10 a.m., then by noon, we will send those out. Somebody asked, let's see. Somebody asked if we've historically seen a difference in the performance of EMBA versus PMBA participants, and we really haven't. Honestly, in EMBA, I think because there's sometimes more experience on average that group brings to the game, they're able to apply some of that into their report to the board presentations. But that's certainly a generalization and not a rule. That's just something we've seen in general, but I wouldn't say that is always the case. Usually our competitors are a strong group and can hold their own regardless of which program they're interested in. All right, so it looks like that may be it. I see a couple of people have said they do have questions about their program of interest and how to make that decision or figuring out what path they want to choose. So I am going to throw up here again. Contact information for Joe Sayer is on this screen, and you will again be receiving a recording of this slide deck with all of this information, but I encourage you to reach out if you have questions on registration, the games, anything at all. My team and I are here to help. Again, I love this time of year. It is the highlight to the winter months here in Rochester for me, and I know for our students and our competitors, and it's a great way to spend some of these cold winter nights is playing these games, and I really hope you will enjoy it. Look forward to meeting many of you along the way. If you have any other questions after tonight, please don't hesitate to reach out, and I hope to see all of your names come Monday, February 11th, starting round 1 of the Simon Games. So with that, I will sign off, and I hope you guys have a great night. Take care.